All right, here we go. Back once again, quarter of a century, 25 episodes in. Can you believe it? As they say in Eastern Europe. Can you believe it? Welcome back, everybody. A snowy day in southwestern Ontario. And as always, even though there's no tour or any real action happening, there's something to talk about. Earlier this morning, I got a message from Dr. K. Said, today, I want to talk about was fans and bodybuilding or bodybuilding and fans. And I was really trying hard to make a connection as to what in the world you're going to talk about. And the only connection I have in my mind, anything to do with Phish and bodybuilding, is when Trey is talking about Arnold and pumping iron in Bittersweet Motel when he's talking about, I'm coming all day, and all that stuff. So, buddy, take it away. I'm really curious to see and to hear what you have to say about bodybuilding and fans, because I don't think of Phish fans when I think of bodybuilders.
It's not. It's all mindset. It's but I think of how to word these things. I'm like, I want to send Adam. I want to word it in a way that Adam's like, what the hell is this idiot talking about?
I would never think you're an idiot, but maybe another word.
Respect. So I was doing my morning reading, and I was reading data on how people dislike, and this is nothing shocking. People dislike confusion in marketing or like in communication altogether, right? So what the study tested, they compared a BMW ad to a Mercedes ad that was doctored by the researchers. And the one was, think of one great thing about Mercedes-Benz. And the more they increase the number, so think of like 10 things or think of 12 things, people started to dislike the ad. Like if it got so strong that if they did it the other way, like if you're a competitor, like if I'm Mercedes now, part of my marketing or my communication, and I hate that I have to always like hedge the term marketing. Marketing is just communication, trying to motivate somebody to do something.
Yeah.
The more confusing and the more options or the more things that they made the other person think about, the less they liked the product because it was confusing.
It wasn't simple enough.
And then I thought, it's interesting because in the bodybuilding market, bodybuilders and fitness people like shit because it's challenging. If you give somebody like a bodybuilder something simple, they're like, fuck this, man. I want the tough shit. I get the joy from doing the stuff that nobody else will do. And then I started thinking, okay, well, we're asking a tall order of people, to discover Phish. It's really confusing, and you're asking a lot of their brain, especially if they're not used to the sounds. So maybe we're just bodybuilder mentality, like, and when it comes to music, we're like, give me the confusing stuff. I want to hear Spock's brain because it's messed up. And because it's messed up, and because it requires a lot of effort on my part to interpret the different changes, the direction of the song, that's one of the reasons that I like it.
Interesting. Okay. I'm processing that.
Just an idea.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, for sure. I'm trying to think if that's true of me and how I like things. Like when you said that just about how we like it a bit confusing and a bit challenging.
Yeah.
I kind of came back to Frank Zappa's music, a few weeks ago when I watched the documentary and was watching that. And I was thinking about his music and how for some it's like very, very chaotic and very confusing. But I like the challenge of listening to it.
Yeah.
Talking about it. Like I felt in a weird sort of way, like, I could listen to this kind of music and other people can't.
Well, it's interesting, right? And there's part of you that's like, hey, part of you likes the exclusivity of being like, hey,
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I think there's, and you see this in the fans comments when you read anything about Phish fans, there's definitely somewhat of an air of superiority that kind of goes along with it for some people, like, and even just getting into, I was there, you weren't, I've been a fan longer than you. Right. You're just a noob look or whatever they want to call you. I think there's definitely that there. And I think that's something that Phish fans kind of struggle with. Like we talked about this last week. I'm blown away that more people don't know more about the band and they're not, a household name, so to speak. Yet it's one of the best things that I love about them is that they're one of the best kept secrets. It's a double-edged sword there.
Well, look at, what's the bathroom break song? The song that sound like 4 standard chords, a pleasant melody.
Yeah, or the long one where they can get the 4 or 5 minutes to go take a leak or whatever and come back for the jam at the end of the song, right? That was a very common response. So interesting. So what kind of like really challenging new concepts are in bodybuilding? Like what's something that would be considered harder than your average?
So
is it like a different workout, a different meal regimen, different?
Dude,
what
it's
is
bodybuilding. It's the toughest sport on the planet, right? Like you're literally forced to deprive yourself on purpose for like months and years on end, right? Like to walk around at like, 2% body fat is ridiculous. So the training schedule is like next level. So you train like how nobody else trains. The volume training. I don't know what your experiences are with like with weight training, but volume training, 10 to 12 reps to like grow the muscles or hypertrophy the muscles is by far the hardest. Like it sucks, man. It's so painful. You're in that zone, and then you're not eating after, right? So it's just nothing but depravity, and it's incredibly hard. And you just you're the type of person that loves the pain. I mean, I think professional athletes, I look at a lot of CrossFitters because I hang around with them, and the ones who are the best at it are the ones who love the pain. Like they love the abuse. They love it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they like that burn. They like the pump. They like breaking through the wall.
That's it, man.
And getting to that next level, that extra rep. Interesting. Yeah, I think of I've never really been a gym guy, but the odd time I've been a gym guy, there's always a couple guys in the gym that are like pushing more weight than anything I've ever seen. And you think like you see them pushing that last rep, and every blood vessel in their head is like gonna pop open. Yeah, I can't imagine. I think I'll always be skinny, but I think that's interesting though in terms of the mentality. That's a good concept. So I guess to apply that to the types of people, I know we've identified a lot of things to get people to like Phish. You got to be a fan of music and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I think we add I think we add that to the category. I think, and I don't know how you would, other than like likes that type of music, I don't know how you would discover, that type of person.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess we all know people in our lives that are into different things, but somebody who likes the challenging stuff, I guess they'd also have to like music. But interesting. It's an interesting concept. I'm going to be thinking about that one a little bit, I think. Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so switching gears, if you like, I mean, maybe we can come back to that because my mind is kind of like, I do that thing where I need to absorb things.
That's like me, man.
I imagine.
That's like me.
Yeah. Real quick, so I just want to kind of follow up. So last week we were talking about Trey's new guitar and the 4.0 debate and all that great stuff.
Yeah.
Coincidentally, the following day, I'm going through the 2010 tour. They took a break after the 4th of July until I want to say August the 5th. So they took about 1 month off and came back and played Berkeley. And I'm listening to the show as always, and I get to the encore. And the first encore track in that show, let me bring it up again here. I want to get the date right, just in case anybody wants to listen to it, is August the 5th. Yeah, so a month since the previous show. And then the first encore song, it's called Thank You, Paul. And it's about 3 minutes long. And Trey had just been given a new Languedoc guitar. It was like the 3.0 guitar. And he has a whole crowd say thank you to Paul and talks a little bit about his relationship with them and how he's there from the early days. And, played some dedicated solos, thinking about that guitar. So I just thought the timing of that was really, really interesting that as we kind of embrace the 4.0 guitar and wait with bated breath to hear it, I happened to listen to the show where the 3.0 guitar was introduced. So that was kind of neat. Another thing we were going to talk about last week that I wanted to get into this week are set lists. So, one of the things that I always love about Dave Matthews Band was no two shows are the same. The set list can really vary. As I've gotten to Phish, obviously people that know Phish know that that's the same, but they're way more varied. They're way more unpredictable than even, say, Dave Matthews. So Dave Matthews in a tour would rotate amongst 80 songs. And I think the tour record, if you don't count Baker's Dozen, I think the tour record for the most amount of songs in a year was either 2015 or 2016. And it clocked at over 230, 240 songs total in the tour. Man. It is. So I was listening to that podcast, Under the Scales, and they asked Trey the question about set lists, and he goes into it from beginning to end. Now, obviously, it's different from the 90s or from whatever else, but the way it is now, I'll kind of get into. So in a nutshell, he gets during tour, he gets up in the morning, has coffee, and in front of him, he has a list of every Phish song, like everything, every cover they do, every original, whatever. Even if they haven't played it in 20, 30 years, it's on this list. And as he's kind of groggy and having coffee, he scratches out in circle songs. Yeah, no, blah, 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 whatever. Just kind of what he's feeling that morning. From there, he ends up with about anywhere from 80 to 100 songs out of the list of all of them, 300 plus, whatever it is. Takes that list, sends it to the tour manager so that when they go in for sound check, they have that list and you can share that with the band. So as they're talking in practice, he'll kind of say, hey, let's do this. And what tends to happen is somebody in the band will say, oh, you know what? I want to run through that because, it's been a while. So they'll sound check that song. Sometimes they'll go, you know what? Man, I got like my kids. Like I need a week. Like I need to go back and practice on my own because I want to get it right. He talked about Mound. About how Mound, the middle part of Mound is really, really hard. They can't just bust it out whenever they want. Right. So there are some songs that they plan to bring into the rotation, but sometimes the guys in the band need some more time. From there, they kind of get it down to about 30 to 40 songs. But even as they're walking on to stage, they don't know what they're going to play. They call it in the moment. And they've done that to make it easier and to free up their mind so it's not so rehearsed and so planned. As they're going on the stage, like anything is on the table still. So even though they have the 30 to 40 songs that they figure are going to be part of that night, it could still have something else. Like if Fishman all of a sudden just smacks in the moment dance, they're going to go in and do it. So there are songs they can bust out whenever, but they take it super seriously and put thought into just being prepared for the song. What's not thought about at all is, did we play this song the last time we were at this venue? That's not even something that's on his radar. It used to be, I guess, when they, first time they were doing multiple nights in big venues, they would plan out the 3 nights or the 4 nights because they, wanted to make sure that there weren't repeats and that sort of thing. But they're kind of at the point now where, and I think it's evident when you listen to the songs, they're a lot more free flowing. They consider the quality of the playing. They clearly take it seriously and don't just want to jump into anything at all. But yeah, and even like he used to plan out if a song ends in a certain key, the next song they would segue into that key. Like if something, and I want to say F, simple as an F. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Am I right about that? Yeah. So
it is.
And they would naturally go into it and write that in. Now, not at all. It's just whatever happens. Like that type of stuff used to be playing groups of songs. He was also asked about how they bring new songs in. Do they on purpose sandwich a new song in between other songs? And they kind of compared it to Elton John. Like when you go to see Elton John, he'll do Benny and the Jets, and then, hey, this is a new song, blah, 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 blah. Play the new song, and then go, okay, thanks for listening to that. Now here's Tiny Dancer. And Trey's take on that was very different in the sense that when you go to see Elton John, you might go to see him once, twice in your life. So that's going to happen. If you're going to go to see Elton John, you need to hear your Tiny Dancer or all those other songs. But with Phish, he says when he comes out on stage, he's seeing the same people all the time. Right. So a new song to him isn't treated that same way. Like he's asking for permission or for forgiveness from the crowd to play the new song. They don't do that at all. They don't play where it goes. If they like that song, they just slap it in. They don't care. Like in the best way.
Well, there's the one, I can't remember what show it was. It was the one where they debuted, I think, Birds of a Feather, Dogs Stole Things. And there was something else, and then Trey's wrapping up the set, and it wasn't like an apology for playing like 4 songs.
Virginia Beach '97, I want to say. It was a dinner and movie last year, right?
The tone of his voice was like, you should feel honored that we're giving you these new songs.
Yeah, totally different, right? It's so they're talking about the difference, like between asking for an apology, like, hey, sorry, we gave you a new song, to it's, that's what we love playing right now. So that's what we're going to play. Yeah. And they've obviously set it up. One of the questions was asked, he said, when making a set, when they used to kind of plan out 3-4 nights in a row, save the really good ones for here. And then Tom said, well, what does that mean? What are the good ones? And they kind of went, well, exactly. That's sort of what it's evolved into, is that it doesn't really exist. It's just all the songs. So really interesting. I'm sure it's changed a bit, maybe even since then, because apparently now they don't really have last I heard, they really don't have much of a set list going into it. They have an idea, but it's even looser now than it was even 4 or 5 years ago. That was from 2016 at MSG. They were talking about that. So
cool.
Interesting stuff. Which I guess if you're in a band, I would prefer it that way. I've never been in one, but you're starting out a band. Would you want to have the same set list every night, like a band like U2 does, or a lot of those guys?
I think it depends on your nature as a human being, right? Like for me,
yeah.
I mean, look at the music that I listen to. I can't stand to listen to the same shit, let alone like play the same shit. Right? Like sitting down, learning other parts. And it's tough because you want to get somebody else's music right. Like you want to be respectful in the sense that, you're this idiot with a guitar. You want to make it sound good, but on the same side, like, I don't know, man, I want some like variability. You want to have fun, because when you have fun, then everybody has fun.
Right.
That's how I see it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't think
totally.
I don't think there's a right or wrong. Like, I mean, there's something to be said about the technical ability of going out and just of nailing it and having it sound like it's on the album, like being that good of a musician. I think it all depends on what you want.
Yeah, for sure. I'm reminded of the show we went to June of 2019 was the band's debut of Ruby Waves. And if you listen to, I want to say Long May They Run, when they're interviewed in there, Trey says that when they started playing that, only him and Fishman knew it. They hadn't run through it. They just went into it that night. And then Paige and Mike just had to follow along and kind of figure it out. That wasn't even part of it. You just come off from Ghost of the Forest, but
it kind of reminds me, I don't know where I was watching this, but Kevin Hart kind of does similar. Like he'll debut bits and pieces of like a joke that he's working on. Typically like at interviews or when like he's sitting down with somebody, he'll like go into a bit and he'll kind of test it to see like what the response is, to see where he can slide it in or whether he needs to scrap it or like what type of like what he's getting from it.
Well, that's really common of comics, right? Like the way that they build their material and their act, they really rotate around, especially obviously the big name comics that have special. What we're not seeing is all the gigs on the road and the clubs where they're testing out all that stuff, refining it, getting the cadence, the wording down, the spacing, the beats, all that stuff. There is a full on rhythm and strategy to really good stand up. And when we see the special, we see the end product. We don't see Jerry, starting out with nothing and bombing on stage, which they all do. Every single comic does it. Having done a little bit of that myself, I kind of miss it. I love stand-up. It's very different from obviously live music, but there's some similarities there in terms of preparation, building the act.
I think when you have a band like Phish, I think there's actually more commonalities because, you have the ability in the moment to be like, oh, fuck. You can pull a Bill Burr, right? And then like insult your audience in Philadelphia and like give, probably one of the most famous like comic performances of the last 10 years, right?
Yeah. So maybe that's a future topic. Comedy, like if you're, if there's what types of connections we can make with stand-up comedy and Phish.
Well, I think the bigger topic is, you have a group of guys here who weren't just willing to play in the box of music. Like this is the way that it's supposed to be done. I think that was the biggest, I think that's the biggest inspiration from the Dead. Like the Dead did stuff that was like, what do you mean you're giving away the concerts? We should be, recording them and releasing them and making a ton of money off of them. Right.
Right.
Like,
but encouraging that trading. No.
What do you mean you're not going to be what do you mean you want to sell your own tickets and book your own shows at these venues? You can't do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Turns out you can. And you can create a whole new business model for future bands to be able to do that themselves too.
Well, not just that, and be the most probably profitable band at the time in the history of humanity. Right.
Selling less records, making more money.
Right. Because like Elton John's fantastic. Elton John isn't, selling out epic venues across America all summer long.
Right.
So
yeah, totally.
Just saying, man.
Yeah. Speaking of epic shows and epic venues, so we're going to segue and talk a little bit about Dinner and a Movie, which is on this Saturday night. First, if I'm not mistaken, it's the first 2.0 Dinner and a Movie, right?
Yes, it is. You would be correct.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe indirectly or directly, I don't know. It sort of inspired me last night. I started to watch the It documentary, bringing back some 2.0 memories and going back to that era.
I can't watch it. The part that irritates me is they keep chopping the live performance with like going back to the band.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys.
Yeah. I think you could buy the It concert where they had selected, like, that's a bonus disc. I was watching it on YouTube. I have it downloaded, but it's just a bonus disc to the actual highlights of the concert, because I don't think the full thing was ever released on DVD. It was about an hour and a half to 2 hours of highlights of the festival itself. But it definitely got me back into the 2.0, I guess, mindset. And I listen to every 2.0 show. I went back and did that about a year ago.
Me too.
And so I've heard the show that's coming up. What was it, July 25th, 2003?
Yeah, don't name. I don't remember the set list. Don't spoil it for me.
Yeah, neither do I. But yeah, I'm interested to see it. Obviously, there's you put out in the email today that there are some great shows from 2.0. There's some stuff that's not so great, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm excited about that either way. It is tough to see Trey in that state, though. It really is, because you're so familiar with him now, and I guess it's a bit easier to watch knowing what's happened on the other side of things.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
We don't know how the story ends per se, but we know where we are and how healthy he is, the band is, where they are. So
it reminds me of, like, when you get to about 30. And you're kind of phasing out of the bar scene, and like getting completely like blackout smashed isn't cool anymore, but there's like still the buddy that wants to continue the trend like consistently.
Yep.
You're just watching it and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Come on.
But evidently, he wasn't the only one. There was just a lot of excess partying. It was just, that break that they took in between 1 and 2.0 was what, year and a half? Nearly 2 years, and they only came back for a year and a half. Really, It was end of 2002, and they were done by, end of the summer 2004 after Coventry, and that was the break where there really wasn't anything on the horizon. Right. 5-year break. So when you look back on some of those shows, it's evident that you need it. The memes you see online of 2.0 Trey, where he's just clearly gone, and he's wearing that shirt with all the pockets. You can hide all his drugs. Like, yeah, it's just kind of crazy to see. But hey, some really great music, some good trippy stuff. I mean, it's a different element of Phish, and it has its value. There's no doubt that it's a huge part of the story of the band. And
there's some really just really good dark, the stuff that I would argue that 3.0 is missing the most. Because I don't know, man, they were in a bad place again. Like you create based on the environment that you're in, and they were in a really tough environment. So it sounds grittier, it sounds nastier. I think it's pretty awesome, to be honest, when they're on.
Yeah.
Nobody likes missed notes and stopping a performance and being like, we fucked that up, and we got to start again. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And it's also interesting considering, like, again, I don't know the level of abuse or how much was consumed, but the fact they can still play at the level they're playing at, despite all that other shit,
I know, it's so true.
It makes me wonder about how key things like muscle memory are. Like, there's probably certain things you need to be very, very focused on, but other elements of songs, if you played that song hundreds of times, do you just go into autopilot and you can figure it out and do it? I'll ask you, as a guitar player, are there certain things that you could be high as a kite, drunk as a skunk, and still be able to play okay?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So I'm interested about watching that. We'll definitely be talking about it next week. I'm going to do my best to stay up and watch the whole thing. And hopefully it's not too uncomfortable.
I probably won't be watching it till the week after on Thursday, because Thursday night's our night to watch.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have to wait until 2 weeks to talk about it.
Whatever. You can talk about it. Just don't give away any of the songs. Even though I've heard the show.
Talking about a band, our favorite band, and I can't talk about the song. Okay, sure. So how about we wait a couple weeks?
Yeah.
In the meantime, another show to look forward to. We had to do a little bit of digging to find out if it was a 93 or 95 show, just based on the poor penmanship of the release. But we determined it's 8/17/93. I was 13 years old, and Kansas City show. Early 1.0, right around the time of Rift coming out. So really, really excited about that. It's great that they put those shows out. I wish there was a little bit more. even like I learned not too long ago, they fully recorded video, all that stuff. They have Cypress Creek. It's in a bank somewhere.
Oh yeah.
It's all done.
Oh yeah.
It's just a matter of the right event to release it. And clearly it's the same with the bulk of the 1.0 stuff. We talked about that as a bit of a strategy. But yeah, anytime we get new shows that are new to us, love that. Really, really excited to check that one out. So
you know, like people give them a lot of shit. I can't blame them. You know,
No.
like there's a lot of value in these shows. You know, there's a lot of the fact that they're releasing anything, number one. Like, let's be a little bit grateful here, other than being, you know, upset that they haven't released all that stuff. But like, this is big money that we're talking about here. Like the rights to these shows, these releases, the videos, the income that could generate, not just for them, but for the families and for their legacy. If you have that opportunity, man, you don't waste it. You know, to like just throw it out there. You know, you know, like for all the good stuff the Grateful Dead did, they did a lot of like dumb business shit.
Like what?
Well, like, you know, Mickey Hart's dad running away, like with their money. He was their manager for a bit. That song "He's Gone" is written for Mickey Hart's dad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got to get more of the Dead history. Like I don't know it that well.
You know, so like it's just they gave a lot of, you know, like they gave a lot of stuff away. Like there's a lot of freeloader, like just freeloading and that type of stuff. So, you know, for these guys to be like, we worked really hard, you know, and we'd like to be set up and our families to be set up after we're gone. I don't blame them for any of that stuff. You know, like look at Zappa stuff. Zappa. You know, again, the family takes just abuse from the fans because of the way like they're releasing the things now, you know, and you know, the concerts are coming out and the videos coming out, and like the family has to like release and sell these things, or whoever has Zappa's estate has to sell these things, and this is where probably most of their money's coming from.
Yeah. But alternatively, like I guess if I'm a fan, if all of a sudden Phish just made it all available, boom, dropped every single show they've ever done on the app and you can get it, I don't think I would like that. No, because I like the idea of, although it's old, it's new to me, right? There's a certain cadence that comes out with these shows that makes me appreciate them more.
I just like,
you know, if it was,
I just like being able to focus on that show, right? And then you listen, and then you re-listen, and then, you know, you put yourself in the context of, okay, well, where were they in '93? What was the venue? You know, that whole thing. So that's how I listen to it.
Yeah. I've been really fascinated with 1.0 lately. The meteoric rise and the relentless touring and the evolution of their sound and what influenced it, and then, you know, just all the things that were going on in the background at the same time. It's an era to me that I'm getting more and more fascinated with and want to listen to more and more of those shows.
I find as an aside, I find it really interesting that of all the eras you dove into 3.0 first.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because I listened to the 3.0 stuff. I only ever really go back to 1.0.
Yeah, that's sort of me lately, apart from that stint where I did every 2.0 show in order. Yeah. But I haven't gone back since. Like this Dinner and a Movie coming out this weekend will be the first time I've listened to a 2.0 show in over a year, for sure. But I think the reason I did it is because I guess I got into everything in 2019, and I like the complete catalog. I like hearing all of the songs. But lately, I've been going out of I've already done 2009, but I've been leaving 2010 to go into other shows because I want to hear some different songs. Yeah. Like I'll go up to a 2018 show so I can hear Mercury or, you know, some of those newer tunes, because I've ended up missing them, knowing that they're out there and I haven't listened to them. I have deviated. And, you know, going back, I listened to the last show in 2000 when they were going on break and check that out. I just find it really, really fascinating about how much their sound and songwriting change in that amount of time. These little blocks and sets, I'm kind of learning about even the different songwriting weekends that Trey had with Tom Marshall and the songs that came out of those weekends and how they're all kind of grouped together. And it's, I just find it super, super fascinating. It's such a rich history for the band, everything they've been through. And there's still more to uncover. It's like a never-ending onion with so many layers, you know, but very much appreciative. And I just think what it'd be like to be back in that time at one of those shows, seeing them at those clubs, knowing full well that, holy shit, this scene is changing and they're growing. And, you know, going from little bars to clubs to theaters to arenas really in like 3-4 years. You know, every time they came back to a city, bigger venue, more fans, you know, a bigger backstage party, all that other great stuff. So, I find it a really interesting time, and it still, holds. I think it doesn't carry the band now, but without 1.0, you don't have Phish. You don't have what it is. It's so unique.
Oh, buddy, 1.0 was it. 1.0 was it, man. That was a mere, like, without that, there would be nothing. There would be just a band making some really good music in a bar.
Yeah. Do you think they should have gone on hiatus after Big Cypress? That's the thing that they talk about all the time, was that they were peaking, and where do you go from there? But 2000 was a great tour. Like there was some amazing shows that came out of 2000.
So to be clear, my favorite, I mean, I've heard as much of Big Cyrus as I can, right? That's available to me right now. 2000 is my favorite year. I think they sound the best. I think they sound the best. I think debating on whether they should have gone on tour or not is I think that adds to the mythos. Like it's like Jimi Hendrix. You have these songs that he recorded. You have this sound that completely transformed rock and roll music. I think part of the legend is that he passed away.
Yes. Kurt Cobain, same thing.
Kurt Cobain, even, but then you have the opposite of that, right? You have someone like Eddie Van Halen. I don't know, man. I can't personally, and I'm feel free. If I get abused for this statement, it's probably well deserved. I cannot listen to Van Halen, with Sammy Hagar or beyond.
Really?
Like, those first 4 albums are so good, and it's so authentically Van Halen, and it's so groundbreaking, right? I don't know if you watched that Steve Vai thing. He was like, there's 2 guitar players that changed guitar forever. Jimi Hendrix and Eddie Van Halen. Yeah. And he's right. Yeah. He's right. I can't go back. So part of me is like, kind of, there's something to be said about going out on top, man.
Yeah, showmanship, right? Totally. Leave them wanting more. And, but and I think Phish would have done that, like in 2000, definitely felt that way. Coventry, I don't know, it seemed like it was the end. You listen to that show, it was just like, oh, this is it.
Yeah, and how awful would it have been if that was the end?
Yeah.
Like, you stumble across as like, like a shadow of your former self.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Right? Like,
luckily for us, though, it didn't happen.
Oh, excellent for us. Like, 2.0 is amazing, but compared to like 2000, not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
In my opinion, anyways.
Yeah, for sure. And, to listen to that show October 7th, 2000, and I think a tip is, when booking shows in the future, we should try to get shows at the end of the tour, not the beginning of the tour, because the end of the tour, the band sounds the best, right? Oh, yeah. And to listen to that show, even though they knew they were going out on a break, it just sounded great. You could just hear how tight they were, and
that's true.
It's just awesome.
That's true of any tour, by the way. Every time I've listened to a complete tour front to back, by the end of the tour, I'm like, fuck, you guys have found your legs, man. Yeah,
there's an excitement about the early stuff for sure, right? What are they going to bust out this year? What's new? What's different? But yeah, in terms of overall quality of the show, end of the tour is always the best. So hopefully we'll be able to do that in the future. All right, man. Anything else from you?
Good. No. I'm excited to hear the show. I'm excited for the release on Friday. I'm excited for dinner. It's awesome, man. It's just so lucky to have this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll see what else the next week brings. So you got to think about that bodybuilding thing and the challenges that go along with that. And yeah, man, interesting. But I think you're right. It's a different type of mentality and a different type of challenge that somebody like that would be willing to take on. It's finding that person that has that mentality, even if it's not bodybuilding, to have that type of mindset in other things.
Well,
right?
You just listen. Like, it's a chore. I'm not gonna pretend like I liked the composed middle section of Reba the first time I heard it. I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
It wasn't like it was new. That was the first time I've ever heard anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't listen to any jazz music. I was a kid listening to Led Zeppelin and The Dead, and I didn't even listen to all of The Dead because some of the stuff was too out there for me, right? So I'm used to 4/4 timing, 1/4/5 chord changes, pentatonic, sounding blues stuff, and then you have this.
Yeah.
And to pretend like it's not a mental effort to get your mind around that stuff. Like I couldn't even listen to all of Frank Zappa stuff. I was like, this is too weird for me, man. It took me a long time to try to climb that mountain before I was like, I get it and I like it.
Right. Yeah. And it's tough for me to remember that too, because I almost expect people to instantly like it the same way that I do. Got this kid that works at the store, a young kid named Tanner. He's 21. always has his headphones on. So we started talking about music a few weeks ago, and he listens to everything, right? He's one of these kids that's into everything from hip hop, rock,
Nice.
jazz, whatever. So yesterday I told him about Phish, and he listens to music on Spotify. And I don't have Spotify, I use Apple Music and or the Phish app. And I went in to his Spotify to see what albums they have. I can't believe how many live, like every live Phish release, like it's out there. So I was scrolling through. He's like, so which one should I start with? And I said, well, number one, what I've learned with Phish is you need to listen to live Phish. You can go with an album. It might be easier, but it's not going to really represent how good the band is. So scrolling through, and eventually we settled on a live one. Although it's not one show, it's highlights of all their live music put into one.
Yep.
I said, this is probably a good place for you to start. 95, it's 1.0 stuff. It's really, so I'm curious to see. He said he was going to listen to it last night. I'm going to see him tonight, and we'll see. Like, I'm curious to hear his thoughts. I mean, he plays instruments and all that stuff, so I'm curious to hear his thoughts.
Do you still listen to Top 40? Like, do you still listen to a lot of it, or at all?
The only version of it that I listen to is what plays in the store that I work at. We have a playlist that plays, and I don't know for the most part if those songs are currently popular.
Yes.
It's all stuff that's mostly done within the past couple of years, and there's a lot of covers. Like there's a cover of the Beatles' "Drive My Car," some female singing. Like there's a lot of cover tunes on it. It's meant to be family friendly music. That's it. I don't seek it out on purpose at all.
Yeah.
Like I don't choose to, but it plays where I work. So I guess so.
I do. I listen to everything. I like pop music. I think it's great. You know, I like Justin Bieber. I like Billie Eilish. I think those artists are outstanding, but I don't keep coming back to listen to it.
It's funny, you know, I was talking about that kind of yesterday. I was comparing great music to great people.
Yeah.
In a sense that, you know, the more you get to know somebody like that really has a lot of great qualities, the more endearing they become to you. Or even talking about attractiveness, you know, you probably met females and your first impression is, wow, this person's really good looking.
Until they open their
mouth. Then you get to, right. And then you get to know them over time. They start to say some dumb shit or do some dumb things. And you start to equate those actions to how you perceive them. And pop music in many ways is to be that hot chick right off the hop. The first time you hear it, I like this. It's designed. But over time, it kind of wears you down. It gets a little bit more boring and not as flashy. Versus music like Phish, it's got to take a bit of work. You got to get to know them. And as you listen to it more and more, and you hear all these little details and the intricacies and the slight changes, you start to appreciate it more and more. But it takes a bit of time, kind of like a fine wine, right?
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and it also makes you respect a band like the Beatles, you know, and people who wrote all these #1 songs that you still hear these songs today, and you're like, holy moly, man! I can't believe somebody made this a song.
Yeah, it's tough to imagine a time when those songs didn't exist. Yeah. Right? Like that was created by somebody. And on a very basic level, I often think about that of songs like Happy Birthday or these songs that just everybody knows. Yeah, yet somebody created that. At some point it didn't exist.
You're right.
And that's true of everything that's around us. I mean, at some point, you know, none of it existed. It's all been made up by somebody, really.
Well,
but that is a bit mind-boggling.
But there's a couple of like just, you know, transfer, like the internet. Like we remember a time before the internet.
We're the last generation with that, really. Yeah, and there's a very big difference in life pre and post. And it's also, you can apply that to Phish and how they've marketed and navigated the world pre-internet, post-internet, and they were one of the first to adopt it, but still, you know, had their mailing lists and all these different things going on before they were able to leverage that tool.
Well, that's what I think is one of the things I think we should dedicate to the band is how well, you know, that they've marketed and how well they've had their pulse on like communicating with people in a way that they don't even know they're being marketed to. Like they had a hotline for like you could call to see when they were going on tour. Like these guys knew what was going on, man.
Yeah. Even just, I don't know if you saw it on Reddit, somebody posted like the guideline or invitation to Clifford Ball. And it had, I don't know if you saw that at all, but they posted a photo of it and it had like the dates and times and suggestions of what to bring. And there was going to be the dedicated radio station for them to tune into when they get there. And just all these levels of detail and thought that they put into the festivals and the way that they marketed those.
But you know what, like not even the marketing, it was, they understood how people that were coming to their shows actually listened to their music. You know, this is like the Steve Jobs ability. Like Steve, you know, a great example was the iPad. This guy creates the iPad. Everyone laughs at him. You're an idiot. You know, you have this thing. He's like, you don't understand how people use this stuff.
Right.
You know, these guys just understood what people would need. They didn't even know that they needed it coming to a festival, but they made it happen because they knew that they would need it.
Right.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All right. Let's go.
There we go. And on that note, I think we should wrap it up.
Okay, buddy. See you next week.
Again, feeling really, really lucky. But yeah, everybody smash the like button. And hey, if you can, leave a comment. It actually does help us. So I've learned recently in the podcast world, if people leave a comment, if they give you a rating, it tells the bots that we're a real thing, that we're not just kind of putting up garbage, or maybe in some people's ears, but that there's real people that are behind this podcast. So for you listeners, take a second, slap a rating on there, ideally 5 freaking stars, but that will help us. It'll get people. We'll rise to the top of the list, so to speak. We'll be searched more and be able to be found. So yeah, if anybody can do that, that would be super. That's my petty ask for the week. Apart from that, stay safe, have a great week, and keep sharing in the groove.
See you, pal.
Bye, everyone.